David Choe is an artist that's gone from rags to riches and back again, and I want to share with you how a series of events took a kid from writing graffiti in Koreatown, Los Angeles to becoming a multi-millionaire, critically acclaimed artist who refuses to have his creative vision censored and works for no one but himself, with all of the jail time, train hopping and rehab in between. So let's start from the beginning, back in Koreatown in the 90s. Although not censored, Choe does admit to having to hide his work from his parents initially, having been brought up in a born-again Christian Korean family where the culture of showing off your kids' successes was the norm. It was difficult for Choe to express his talents to his parents due to their pretty hardcore content, or the fact that they were often being showcased on numerous walls across LA. The embarrassment that this would bring onto his family, he said, is what kept much of his work secret to begin with. It's clear that Choe fostered his artistic ability throughout his teens, but also fostering the traits of a man living life on his own terms. In an early interview with Jamie Wright in 2003, he stated that, "I've spoiled myself for as long as I can remember. I take what I want and I get what I want. For as long as I can remember, one of my greatest talents is that of a crook." This introspective statement would be more accurate than he could have realised in a couple years' time. In 1995, however, Choe began to try and take a more normal path in life, attending California College of Arts for a year, but having to drop out after his family lost their business. During this time, he went to showcase his art to people within the advertising agency business that specialised in movie posters for LA-based studios. However, upon seeing the long line of people waiting to have their portfolios evaluated, he decided instead to wait and follow the person that was assessing these portfolios when he went into the bathroom. In doing so, he actually managed to secure a job drawing movie posters, as the guy was impressed by his confidence and, importantly, his art style. After just 2 months, however, of not being able to draw the things that he wanted to, he looked around at what he calls soulless artists in the room and he quit on the spot. The senior member that had given him the opportunity to begin with asked sarcastically how he would make a living now with his dumb cartoons. Well, over time this was answered. Although initially he went to work for Hustler and Playboy where his raunchy cartoon style was more acceptable, he also fell back into stealing the materials he needed for his art and having run-ins with the law. He was, however, making progress in the art world. He self-published a graphic novel titled Slow Jams in 1996, and in 1999 he received a grant of $5,000 for it. From this first taste of success, the ball was now rolling, and he began to be contacted for more and more commission pieces of murals and cartoon styles. One such commission came in 2005, where a friend that was now working for some new startup called Facebook, which Choe himself at the time found dumb, contacted him. Regardless of his feelings toward the business idea, he took the commission and painted their offices. Once this commission was done, he then went to Japan later in 2005 for a show that he was a part of. However, when in Japan, he found himself in a fight with an undercover police officer, which ended him with a 3-month jail sentence in Japan. While Choe in our point in the story is sat in a foreign prison, I think it's a good time to tell you about the other Choe story that's been running parallel to his art up until this point: his gambling. Until now, from his teen years and up, Choe has been getting around America through hitchhiking and train hopping, and he's been taking free rides from those that will give him, running from security guards, across buildings, and spreading his art wherever he went. But as his mind raced with art and ideas, he always had a place that remained constant for him: Las Vegas. Initially talking in an interview in 2003 of gambling and losing amounts of around $1,000 at a time, no small sum, Choe's increased success in the art world was allowing him to travel to Vegas with larger and larger amounts, still via hopping on moving freight trains of course. Often he was just taking with him the clothes on his back and a pillowcase full of cash. However, now with his increased stature in the art world, these pillowcases of cash had at times held up to $1 million. To really appreciate the amounts to which Choe was gambling, you have to understand that several of the Las Vegas casinos actually raised their betting limits for this guy, up to $250,000 per hand. Suddenly that $1,000 he mentioned earlier really doesn't seem so much. So now understanding a bit better the level of indulgence, gain and loss that Choe was regularly experiencing, let's join him at the end of his sentence in Japan. Upon getting out, Choe returned to creating art for shows he would partake in, and would begin to take commissions with a new hunger after being trapped in that prison. In 2007, he was offered by Mr. Mark Zuckerberg to come over to the new Facebook offices and do another mural, after he'd appreciated the initial one they did at their old office. After completing the mural, Choe was offered either $10,000 in cash or in stocks. While Choe still saw from some recent gambling losses, and knowing that those funds would only fuel those losses further, opted for the stock payments, even though he still believed that Facebook was kinda dumb. Around this time, Choe also began to work for Vice as part of their guide to travel show, and using the aforementioned skills for riding rails, gambling, and travelling for free, he and a friend Harry Kim, who he had collaborated with since a young age, set out to create Thumbs Up, a show in which the pair hitchhike across America, accepting any rides as long as they're free, including spreading their art, meeting people, and you guessed it, gambling. It ran in its original format for 3 seasons in various locations, with the final season of this format being released in 2010, and it's honestly one of the best series on YouTube, and you should check it out. From this time forward, Choe continued to work with Vice as well as dip his toes into different media endeavours. However, just a couple years later, it would be the mass media that came to him. Remember that little startup company, Facebook, that he thought was dumb and that he had painted a mural 4 years ago? Well, also recall that he took the stock payment instead of cash in order to not fuel his gambling habits. Well, turns out Facebook just went public, and in its current state, that meant that the original stock payment received is probably at this point worth about $200 million, with less conservative estimates leaning towards $500 million. Moving forward, Choe, a self-proclaimed overindulger from all the way back in that interview in 2003, well, he indulges. Gambling, art, parties, travelling, creating his own show, as well as being a self-proclaimed hoarder, he once found $100,000 in an old shoebox in his apartment and set about creating a scavenger hunt around the US for anyone to join. After fine dining restaurant staff assumed that he was scruffy and couldn't afford any of the food at their establishment, he formed a habit of consistently ordering the most expensive fish dishes in restaurants he went to, and ended up developing diabetes from this. I could go on with his indulgence, as well as his money could, but over the years he's continued to create and put out critically acclaimed shows and artworks, and with both of the major shows that he's been a part of receiving Emmys, he's obviously pretty good at it. Upon the news of his wealth, many rush to claim that he's money driven, or that he's changed, or that he's just lucky. Well, it seems that the best way to refute these claims is to ask, where is he now? Well, he still lives in the same small apartment in Koreatown. He still has his same old friends. His quality and style of work remains on an upward trend. Up until his fortune, he was getting around the US just as showcased in Thumbs Up for free via train hopping and hitchhiking, something he states regularly to those who claim that they can't adventure in the same way he does or live the same way he has because of a lack of funds. He has a catalogue of work over the last 2 decades and has always stayed true to his artistic principles laid out from all the way back in the early days. He paid the price for his overindulgence, from gambling losses to overeating after rehab. Even though his quality and quantity of pieces has only been going up, he doesn't want his art to just be for the rich few, and he's turned down huge offers for paintings to stand by this, still selling his books and other works for fair prices to random people. So as a person going from having to drop out of college and resort to stealing for paint, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars and experiencing the isolation of a foreign prison, to one that's just doing what he loves and showcasing it uncensored to the world, it's clear to see that there's more than just luck with David Choe, and he really is just living life on his own terms. Well, if you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed and that you learned some stuff about Choe, and if you want to check out more of his stuff, which you should because this is really just a brief overview and there's so much to dive into, then I've left some links in the description to do so. Peace.